Commander stood on the metal platform overlooking the staging area. His 6 eyes moved across the assembled forces below. Ships from dozens of worlds had brought warriors to this place. The air smelled of fuel and weapons oil. Had seen 30 years of war. His dark shell bore scars from plasma burns and projectile impacts. Other commanders respected him. Soldiers followed his orders without question. He knew how to read an army's strength just by watching them move. The soldiers caught his attention first. Their rock-like bodies could stop most weapons. They moved with the confidence of beings who feared little. Good troops, reliable. They floated nearby in their energy suits. Pure energy beings needed special equipment to interact with solid matter, but their weapons could slice through armor like paper. Dangerous allies to have. His own forces stood in perfect formation. Their chitinous armor gleamed under the artificial lights. Each warrior carried weapons that could level buildings. They had fought beside him for years. He trusted them completely. Then he saw the humans. His mandibles clicked together in what other species might mistake for laughter. The humans looked soft, pink flesh covered in thin fabric and light armor. Their weapons seemed primitive, simple projectile launchers that threw metal pieces. No energy weapons, no plasma cannons. "Commander," said his aide, a young name-door, "the human contingent has arrived. They request assignment to the primary assault." Studied the humans more carefully. They stood about 2 meters tall on average, much shorter than most coalition species. Their skin looked fragile. No natural armor, no claws or fangs visible. They carried small packs and basic medical supplies. Primary assault. Translator made his clicking sound like rough laughter. "Look at them, or they have no protection. Their weapons are ancient. Half of them would die in the first energy barrage." The human commander approached the platform, a female with short dark hair and pale skin. She wore the same basic armor as her troops, nothing impressive about her appearance. "Commander," she said through her translator, "Colonel Martinez, Earth Defense Corps, we're ready for deployment orders." Looked down at her. Even standing on the platform, he barely reached his chest height. Her bones probably weighed less than one of his limbs. "Colonel Martinez," he said carefully, "your species is new to coalition warfare. This will be a difficult battle. Perhaps your forces would be better suited to supply duties or base security." The human's face changed. Her mouth moved in a way that suggested displeasure. "Sir, we came here to fight. My people didn't travel halfway across the galaxy to guard supplies." "I understand your eagerness," replied, "but warfare requires durability. The Dominion uses weapons that can melt steel. They have creatures that hunt by scent across continents. This is not a place for," he searched for a diplomatic word, "inexperienced troops." Colonel Martinez stepped closer to the platform edge. "Commander, with respect, we've been fighting wars longer than most species have had space travel. We know what we signed up for." Studied her again. Humans claimed to have military experience, but there was a peaceful garden compared to the war zones he knew. Earth had one sun, stable weather, and abundant resources. What kind of warfare could such a soft world produce? "Very well," he decided. "Your forces will take the secondary objective, a supply depot 3 kilometers from the main fortress. Light resistance expected, minimal Dominion presence." He watched disappointment cross the human's features. Good. Better disappointed than dead. The secondary target would keep them busy while real soldiers handled the dangerous work. "Sir," Martinez said quietly, "we came here to prove ourselves. Give us a real mission." "This is a real mission," replied firmly. "The supply depot provides ammunition to 3 defensive positions. Capturing it will help the main assault." It was partially true. The depot did supply other positions, but coalition intelligence suggested only a token garrison defended it, a safe assignment for untested allies. Colonel Martinez saluted in the human fashion. "Understood, Commander. We won't let you down." After she left or approached, Commander, the humans seem eager. "Eagerness without capability leads to death," replied. "Better to keep them alive for future battles where we understand their limitations." He pulled up tactical displays on his wrist computer. The main fortress dominated a mountain ridge. Heavy weapons protected every approach. The Dominion had spent months fortifying the position. Breaking it would require everything the Coalition had. Assigned his best units to the direct assault. Heavy troops would absorb defensive fire while forces provided cover. He kept the humans far from danger zones. The battle would begin at sunrise. 12 hours to rest and prepare. Had planned similar operations many times. He understood the risks. The fortress would fall eventually, but the cost would be high. He watched the humans setting up their camp area. They moved efficiently but used simple equipment. Their medical station looked basic compared to Coalition standard. Their weapons maintenance was primitive. Everything about them suggested a species unprepared for serious warfare. Still, something bothered him about their eagerness. Most new Coalition species approached their first major battle with obvious nervousness. The humans showed no fear. They prepared methodically, like veterans. Perhaps they simply didn't understand what they faced. Earth's isolated location meant little contact with galactic conflicts. They probably expected warfare similar to their own world's primitive conflicts. Tomorrow would educate them quickly. Reviewed the assault plan one final time. Everything looked solid. Primary forces would punch through the main defenses while secondary units secured flanking positions. The humans would capture their supply depot and learn what real war meant. Simple and clean. By sunset tomorrow, the fortress would fly Coalition flags. He had no idea how wrong he was about the humans. Dawn came with the sound of engines. Stood in his command vehicle watching screens that showed the battlefield. Every unit reported ready status. The assault would begin in 10 minutes. "All forces, this is command," he spoke into his communicator. "Primary assault begins on my mark. Secondary units advance after primary engages." The fortress looked different in daylight. Massive walls rose from the mountainside. Weapon turrets tracked across the sky. Energy shields flickered around key positions. The Dominion had built this place to last. Mark commanded. His forces moved first. Their armored vehicles rolled forward while aircraft provided cover. Plasma fire immediately erupted from the fortress walls. Bright streams of energy lit up the morning sky. The troops advanced on foot. Their stone-like bodies absorbed hits that would destroy normal armor. They moved slowly but steadily toward the outer defenses. Units flanked from both sides. Their energy weapons cut through Dominion barriers like hot knives. The assault was proceeding exactly as planned. Switched his attention to the secondary screen showing the human advance. Colonel Martinez had spread her forces in a wide formation. They moved quickly but carefully toward the supply depot 3 kilometers away. "Human forces are approaching their objective," reported Orr. "No contact with enemy units yet." "Good," replied. "Keep them updated on our progress." The main battle intensified. Dominion heavy weapons opened fire from concealed positions. Several vehicles took direct hits. Medical teams rushed forward to extract wounded soldiers. Then screens lit up with new contacts. "Commander," his tactical officer shouted. Massive energy built up near the human position. Spun to check the secondary display. Hidden artillery positions were emerging from underground bunkers around the supply depot. The depot wasn't lightly defended. It was bait. "All units, this is command," he broadcast urgently. "Human forces, you have multiple hostile contacts emerging. Withdraw immediately." But the artillery fired before his warning reached them. Plasma bombardment erupted across the human position. watched in horror as energy beams hot enough to melt steel poured down on the exposed human forces. The thermal readings on his screen turned white with heat. "Or get me damage reports," he ordered while trying to contact Colonel Martinez. No response from the human commander. No response from any human unit. The bombardment continued for 3 full minutes. When it finally stopped, sensors showed a crater where the human forces had been positioned. The ground temperature read over 2,000 degrees. "Medical teams to human position immediately," he commanded. There might be survivors who needed immediate evacuation. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm getting signals from the human position." "Impossible," replied. "Nothing could survive that bombardment." But his screens showed movement in the crater. Thermal signatures indicated living beings moving among the superheated debris. "Put me through to whoever's transmitting," ordered. Static filled his speakers, then a voice came through. Human, male, calm. "This is Sergeant Williams, 2nd Platoon. Colonel Martinez is down but alive. Requesting medical support but continuing mission." Stared at his screens. "Sergeant, your position took direct plasma bombardment. You need immediate evacuation." "Negative, sir. We can still reach the objective. About half our people are mobile." Half their people were mobile. After plasma bombardment that should have killed everything in a kilometer radius. "Sergeant, I'm looking at thermal readings. Nothing should be alive in that area." "Well, sir, we're definitely alive. Some of us are pretty banged up, but we can still fight." Switched to visual sensors. What he saw made no sense. Human soldiers were climbing out of the crater. Their armor was melted and fused to their bodies in places. Some moved with obvious injuries, but they were moving. They were alive. They were regrouping. "Or," he said quietly, "run a diagnostic on our sensors. Something is wrong with our readings." His aide worked quickly, then looked up with confusion. "All sensors are functioning normally, Commander." On screen, watched a human soldier with severe burns across his face help another soldier whose left arm hung at an unnatural angle. They moved toward the supply depot as if nothing had happened. Colonel Martinez's voice crackled through the communications system. "Command, this is Martinez. We're proceeding to objective. Some casualties, but nothing we can't handle." "Colonel, you took plasma bombardment," responded. "Your medical readings show critical injuries across your entire unit." "Yes, sir, we noticed, but we're still operational, continuing mission." His mandibles clicked involuntarily. In 30 years of warfare, he had never seen any species survive direct plasma bombardment. The energy weapons used by Dominion forces could melt armor. They could shatter stone bodies. They could disperse energy forms. But humans were walking through the aftermath. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human forces have engaged the supply depot defenders." Watched his screens with growing disbelief. The humans who had just survived impossible bombardment were now fighting normally. They moved with coordination and purpose. They used cover effectively. They returned accurate fire. Some of them were missing pieces. One soldier fought while dragging a leg that clearly wasn't working properly. Another had burns across most of his visible skin, but still operated his weapon with steady hands. "How are they still fighting?" or whispered. Didn't answer because he didn't know. Everything he understood about biology said those humans should be dead. Everything he knew about warfare said no unit could maintain combat effectiveness after such damage. The humans secured the supply depot in 20 minutes. "Command, objective secured," Colonel Martinez reported. "Ready for next assignment." Next assignment. These beings had just survived something that should have killed them, and they wanted more work. "Colonel," said carefully, "I'm dispatching medical teams to your position. Your people need immediate treatment." "Appreciated, sir, but save your medical teams for the main assault. We've got our own medics handling things here." Looked at his medical readings again. The humans showed injuries that should require major surgery, blood loss that should cause unconsciousness, burns that should be fatal. But their vital signs remained stable. Their combat effectiveness appeared intact. "Commander," his communications officer called, "the main assault is requesting support. They're taking heavy casualties at the primary objective." Turned his attention back to the fortress assault. His best troops were struggling against determined resistance. Casualties mounted as Dominion defenders fought from prepared positions. Meanwhile, the humans had just accomplished something impossible. He stared at the secondary screen showing human forces organizing defensive positions around the captured supply depot. They moved like professional soldiers despite injuries that should have ended their military careers. For the first time in decades of command, questioned his understanding of warfare. Maybe he had underestimated more than just the humans' eagerness to fight. Maybe he had underestimated what humans actually were. 18 hours into the battle, forces were rotating units for rest and resupply. Standard military doctrine required regular breaks to maintain combat effectiveness. Even his elite warriors needed time to recover. The humans had received no such breaks. Studied the tactical display with growing confusion. His own forces showed normal degradation patterns. Reaction time slowed. Accuracy decreased. Morale dropped as exhaustion set in. The human forces showed different patterns. Their efficiency actually seemed to improve over time. "Sir," or reported, "reconnaissance shows a human squad cut off behind enemy lines. Grid reference 7 Alpha 9. Switched to long-range sensors. A small group of humans had penetrated deep into Dominion territory during the night assault. Enemy forces had surrounded them 12 hours ago." Standard procedure was simple. Surrounded units either fought their way out immediately or surrendered when ammunition ran low. No unit could maintain combat operations while trapped for extended periods. But these humans were still fighting. "Get me a detailed scan of that position," ordered. The results appeared on his screen moments later. 9 humans occupied a destroyed building. Enemy forces surrounded them from 3 directions. Normal tactical analysis suggested they should have been eliminated hours ago. Instead, they were winning. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "the human squad leader is Sergeant. Her medical readings are unusual." Examined the data. Sergeant showed massive internal damage from a particle beam hit. The weapon had torn through her abdomen, destroying organs and causing severe blood loss. Any coalition species would have died instantly from such wounds. Sergeant was actively coordinating flanking maneuvers. "Patch me through to that position," he ordered. Static filled his speakers before a calm female voice responded. "This is, who am I speaking with?" "This is Commander. Sergeant, you need immediate medical evacuation. Your position is surrounded and your injuries are critical." "Negative, Commander. We're handling the situation, actually making good progress here." Looked at his screens again. The humans had established defensive positions in the ruined building. They were using debris and rubble to create cover while systematically eliminating Dominion forces. "Sergeant, my medical scanners show you have suffered wounds that should be fatal. You are losing blood at a dangerous rate." "Yes, sir, noticed that. Got it mostly under control, though. Field bandages work pretty well." "Field bandages? For wounds that should require major surgery." "Sir," or whispered, "watch this." On the tactical display, one of the human soldiers collapsed. His vital signs indicated massive blood loss from leg wounds. Normal procedure would be to abandon the position and evacuate the wounded soldier. Instead, the other humans moved him to cover and began performing surgery. Watched in disbelief as Sergeant, holding her own intestines in place with one hand, directed medical procedures with the other. The humans used basic field supplies and improvised tools to repair damage that should require advanced medical facilities. They succeeded. 20 minutes later, the wounded soldier was conscious and alert. 30 minutes after that, he was fighting again. "This is impossible," muttered. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're getting reports from multiple human units. Similar situations across the battlefield." Pulled up additional feeds. Human soldiers continued operating with injuries that should end military careers. A private with severe burns across 60% of his body still provided accurate sniper fire. A lieutenant with a collapsed lung coordinated artillery strikes while medics worked on his chest. Most disturbing was their pain tolerance. Coalition medical doctrine assumed that severe injuries reduced combat effectiveness due to shock and suffering. The humans seemed to function better as their injuries accumulated. "Sir," Orr said, "I've been reading human medical files. Their biology is different." "Different how?" "Their bones heal stronger after breaking. Their muscles adapt to extreme stress by growing larger. Their blood carries more oxygen under pressure. And sir," Orr paused, "their brain chemistry actually changes during extended combat. Pain signals decrease while focus increases." Absorb this information slowly. You're saying they become better soldiers as they take damage. The data suggests that possibility, sir. On his screens, Sergeant's squad began advancing from their defensive position. They moved through enemy fire with coordination that should be impossible for wounded troops. Every step was calculated. Every shot was precise. They were hunting the hunters. Sergeant called through the communicator, "What is your current status?" "Excellent, sir. We've eliminated 17 enemy positions and are moving on their command post. Should have this area secured within the hour." "Sergeant, you've been surrounded and outnumbered for 12 hours. "Yes, sir. Enemy made some tactical errors, though. They assumed we'd break after the first few casualties." Watched the tactical display as the human squad systematically destroyed Dominion positions that had been causing problems for his main forces. These weren't desperate last stands. This was professional military work performed by soldiers who refused to acknowledge their limitations. "Sir," his medical officer reported, "I've been analyzing human injury patterns. Their recovery rates are extraordinary. Wounds that should take weeks to heal are closing in hours. Their immune systems seem to accelerate under stress." "Accelerate?" "Their bodies appear designed for extended combat operations, sir, as if warfare was their natural environment. Considered this. Most species evolve to avoid conflict. Better to retreat, hide, or negotiate than risk injury. But what if a species evolved differently? What if survival required fighting regardless of damage?" "Sergeant," he called again, "how many of your people are still combat effective?" "All of us, sir. Is moving a bit slow with his leg wound, but he's still functional." "All of them, after 12 hours of surrounded combat with injuries that should be fatal." Pulled up historical data from his personal files. 30 years of war across 12 star systems. He had never encountered anything like this. His best warriors were tough and experienced, but even they had limits. Push them too hard and they broke. Injure them severely and they became liabilities. The humans seemed to have different rules. "Sir," Orr reported, "Sergeant's squad has secured the enemy command post. They're requesting permission to continue advancing." Continue advancing, after everything they had endured. "Permission granted," heard himself say. He watched the tactical display as 9 heavily wounded humans began hunting fresh enemy positions. They moved like predators who had found their natural element. For the first time in 30 years of command, began to wonder if he understood warfare at all. 36 hours into the siege, his forces were operating at 40% combat effectiveness. His medical teams worked around the clock treating exhausted soldiers. Stimulant injections kept essential personnel functional, but everyone had limits. The main fortress still held. 3 separate assaults had failed against the central gate complex. The Dominion had designed a perfect killing field. Anyone approaching the entrance faced overlapping weapon emplacements from elevated positions. No cover existed in the approach zone. No alternative routes offered better options. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "ammunition reserves at 60%, medical supplies at 30%. Recommend we consider siege tactics instead of direct assault." Studied the fortress layout again. A siege could last months. Coalition command needed this position taken quickly, but the defensive design seemed unbreakable. "What about the human forces?" he asked. Or checked his displays. "Still at full combat readiness, sir. Colonel Martinez is requesting permission to attempt the central approach." Full combat readiness. After 36 hours of continuous operations, examined the human status reports more carefully. Their casualty lists showed dozens of soldiers wounded, but none were listed as combat ineffective. "Sir," his communications officer called, "Colonel Martinez is requesting immediate conference." "Put her through." Colonel Martinez's voice came through clearly despite background weapon fire. "Commander, we've studied the fortress approach. We believe we can breach the main gate." "Colonel, 3 assault waves have failed at that position. The defensive layout makes approach impossible." "Sir, we don't plan to avoid the defenses. We plan to go through them." Through them, examine the tactical data again. The killing field extended for 800 meters of open ground. Multiple weapon positions could target any point simultaneously. Previous assaults had been destroyed before reaching halfway. "Colonel, explain your strategy." "Direct assault, sir. Fast advance through the center of the killing field. Overwhelming speed and aggression." His mandibles clicked involuntarily. "Colonel, that approach is suicide. My best units couldn't survive that fire zone." "Respectfully, sir, your units aren't humans." Paused. The statement carried implications he was only beginning to understand. "Colonel, I cannot authorize an attack that will result in total casualties." "Sir, with respect, you don't understand human casualties. Permission to demonstrate." Against his better judgment, found himself agreeing. "Permission granted, but I want full medical teams standing by for immediate evacuation." "Understood, sir." Switched to direct visual observation of the fortress approach. Human forces gathered at the edge of the killing field. He counted approximately 200 soldiers preparing for the assault. Among them, he spotted Sergeant, the same soldier who had been performing surgery on herself while surrounded by enemies 2 days ago. She now wore field bandages across most of her body but moved with confident purpose. "All units, this is command," announced. "Human forces are attempting central approach. Provide covering fire where possible." The humans formed into assault groups. No fancy tactics, no clever maneuvers. They simply lined up facing the fortress entrance 800 meters away. Colonel Martinez's voice cut through the communication static. "All teams, remember your training. Fast and steady. Keep moving no matter what happens." Watched through his optical sensors as the humans began running. Not walking, not advancing tactically, running at full speed directly toward the fortress gates. Dominion weapons opened fire immediately. Energy beams and projectile weapons created a wall of destruction across the killing field. The first humans to enter the zone took direct hits that should have stopped them instantly. They kept running. Watched a soldier take a particle beam through the chest that punched a hole completely through his body. The man stumbled but continued forward. Another soldier lost her left arm to an explosive round, but shifted her weapon to her remaining hand without breaking stride. "Impossible," whispered beside him. The humans were halfway across the killing field. Defensive fire intensified. Counted 17 separate soldiers taking hits that should be instantly fatal. They kept running. Some fell and didn't rise again, but their momentum carried the group forward. "Sir," his medical officer reported, "I'm reading vital signs from soldiers who should be clinically dead. Their bodies are continuing to function despite massive trauma." Couldn't respond. 30 years of military experience provided no framework for what he was witnessing. Every rule of warfare, every understanding of biology, every assumption about physical limitations was being proven wrong. The humans reached the fortress gates. Survivors from the assault immediately began working to disable the defensive systems from inside the protective area. They moved with the same professional efficiency they had shown throughout the battle, despite injuries that should have left them unconscious. "Sir," his communications officer called, "incoming transmission from inside the fortress." Sergeant's voice filled the command center. "Command, this is, defensive grid is down, ready for main assault force." Stared at his displays showing the fortress approach. Bodies lay scattered across the killing field, but enough humans had survived the impossible charge to breach the defenses from within. "Sergeant," he managed to say, "what is your current status?" "Operational, sir. We've taken some hits, but nothing that stops us from fighting." "Some hits?" The medical scanners showed that Sergeant had sustained 3 separate wounds that should be fatal. She was missing significant blood volume. Her left lung had collapsed. Shrapnel had damaged her spine. She sounded annoyed by the delay. "Sir," his voice continued, "sorry for taking so long. The defensive grid was harder to disable than expected. Are you ready to proceed?" For the first time in 30 years of combat, command froze completely. His training told him to order the main assault. His experience said the breach was impossible. His understanding of reality had simply stopped functioning. "Commander," Sergeant called again, "we're holding position inside the fortress, but we could use support soon." Or touched his arm gently. "Sir, should I order the assault?" Looked at his aide, then at his tactical displays, then at the impossible scene of humans establishing positions inside an impregnable fortress after charging through a killing field that should have stopped anything alive. "Order the assault," he said quietly. As his forces advanced toward the breached defenses, realized he had been thinking about warfare entirely wrong. Physical limitations weren't universal constants. They were species-specific variables. And humans apparently had very different variables than anyone else in the galaxy. The fortress fell within 2 hours. When the battle ended, sat in his command chair staring at casualty reports that logic. Human losses were listed as 23 killed in action, but medical files showed 67 soldiers who had sustained injuries classified as fatal by coalition standards. Those 67 soldiers were currently helping secure the fortress perimeter. Deleted his prepared report recommending limited human deployment in high-risk operations. Instead, he began writing a request for immediate tactical doctrine revision. The galaxy needed to learn what he was beginning to understand. Warfare had rules, but apparently humans had never bothered to read them. 2 hours after the fortress fell, walked through the human medical facility. He had expected to find a morgue. Instead, he found organized chaos that resembled a trauma surgery center more than a military aid station. Soldiers who should have been dead were sitting up and talking. Others missing significant parts of their anatomy discussed when they could return to active duty. The most shocking sight was the absence of despair or defeat. These humans acted like their impossible survival was normal. "Commander," a female voice called from across the medical bay. Turned to see a human wearing medical insignia. She was treating a patient whose spine had been severed by shrapnel 12 hours earlier. The man was conscious and moving his arms normally. I'm Dr. Sarah, Chief Medical Officer, she said while checking readings on a device. You wanted to speak with someone about our casualty rates. Doctor, I don't understand what I'm seeing here. These soldiers should be dead. Doctor paused in her work. Which ones specifically? Gestured around the medical bay. All of them. Your casualty reports list injuries that would be fatal to any known species, but they're conscious and alert. Oh, you're comparing us to other coalition species. Doctor nodded as if this explained everything. That's the problem. We're not like other coalition species. She moved to another patient whose heart had stopped twice during the battle. The man was arguing with a nurse about being cleared for duty. Doctor, how is this possible? Asked. Doctor considered the question while reviewing medical charts. Commander, what do you know about human evolution? Basic information. Your species developed on a garden world with stable conditions and abundant resources. Garden world, Doctor laughed, but not with humor. Commander, Earth tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. She pulled up a holographic display showing images of various landscapes. Ice ages that lasted hundreds of thousands of years, eruptions that blocked sunlight for decades, predators that could track us across continents, diseases that killed entire populations. The images shifted to show massive creatures with sharp teeth and claws. We weren't apex predators, Commander. We were prey. For most of our evolution, everything on our world was bigger, stronger, and better armed than we were. Studied the display with growing understanding. How did you survive? We learned to be too stubborn to die. Doctor moved to another patient, this one missing most of his left leg. Every other species you've met evolved to be perfectly adapted to their environment. We evolved to survive environments that were actively trying to murder us. She paused her medical work to look directly at. There's a fundamental difference there. Your people, you all developed optimal solutions for stable conditions. We developed the ability to keep functioning when everything went wrong. But the injuries, protested, how can they survive such damage? Doctor smiled grimly. Because we had to. Look at this man, she indicated the soldier missing his leg. On your world, losing a limb means death because your evolution never required adaptation to such trauma. On our world, people regularly survived much worse and lived to reproduce. She moved to her next patient, a woman whose lung had been punctured in 3 places. Our cardiovascular system can function with massive damage. Our nervous system roots around injuries automatically. Our immune system goes into overdrive during stress instead of shutting down. This is biologically impossible, said. No, Commander, this is biologically necessary. Let me show you something. Doctor pulled up genetic analysis charts. Human DNA carries genes for rapid healing that activate under stress, bone density that increases during extended physical trauma, pain resistance that improves with exposure. We literally become harder to kill the more someone tries to kill us. Absorb this information slowly. Your entire species is designed for warfare. Not warfare specifically, survival. But when survival required fighting saber-toothed tigers with pointed sticks, the result was the same. Doctor checked another patient's vital signs. We've been fighting impossible odds for so long that impossible became normal. She gestured around the medical bay. Every person here descends from ancestors who survived ice ages, plagues, predator attacks, starvation, injury, and trauma that would have eliminated weaker bloodlines. We're what's left after millions of years of natural selection for refuses to die. But your technology, said, your weapons and equipment seem primitive. Because we don't need advanced technology to be effective. When your biology is your primary weapon system, everything else is just support equipment. Doctor moved to Sergeant, who was having her bandages changed. Sergeant, she said, tell the commander how you're feeling. Fine, Doc, ready to get back to work. looked at with clear eyes despite injuries that should have left her unconscious. "Sir, are there any follow-up missions planned?" Follow-up missions. This soldier had been performing surgery on herself while surrounded by enemies. She had charged through a killing field that stopped his best troops. She was held together by bandages and medical tape. And she wanted more work. "Sergeant," said carefully, "don't you need time to recover?" "From what, sir?" A few scratches. Seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. Doctor smiled. "Commander, do you understand now? We don't have different equipment or tactics. We have different definitions of survivable injury and combat ineffective." Studied the medical bay one more time. Soldiers who should be dead were planning their next missions. Medical staff treated injuries that should require months of recovery as minor inconveniences. "Doctor, how many of these soldiers will return to full duty?" "All of them, eventually. The ones with more serious injuries might need a few days of rest." A few days, for injuries that would end military careers in any other species. "Commander," Doctor continued, "you've been thinking about warfare in terms of optimization and efficiency. Humans think about warfare in terms of persistence and endurance. We don't fight until conditions become unfavorable. We fight until the enemy stops moving." Left the medical bay with a completely changed understanding of military capability. His personal log entry that evening was brief but significant. Species assessment requires immediate revision. Humans do not operate within normal biological parameters. Their definition of fatal injury does not match coalition medical standards. Their pain tolerance increases under stress rather than decreasing. Their combat effectiveness improves with accumulated damage. Recommend immediate tactical doctrine revision. Previous assumptions about casualty rates, mission duration, and force multiplication factors are incorrect when applied to human units. Personal note: after 30 years of warfare, I thought I understood the limits of military possibility. Humans suggest those limits were much higher than anyone realized. Request immediate cultural exchange program with human military forces. We have much to learn about the definition of impossible. Paused in his writing, then added one final line. Note to Coalition Command: recommend careful consideration of any future conflicts involving humans as opposing forces. Current tactical models are inadequate for species that treat fatal as inconvenient. He submitted his report and began planning training programs for coalition officers. The galaxy was about to learn what humans meant when they said they didn't give up. War, realized, was about to become much more interesting.